Okay, so.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the place where you are. So we are really pleased to see all of you in this presentation. As Musha said, this presentation is part of a series. And today we will start with deep learning through teamwork, peer assessment, and reflective feedback. Let's meet your presenters. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Angela Romay. I am from La Paz, Bolivia. I'm a professor at Catholic University and I work in different universities, public and private ones as well. I have a degree in linguistics and currently I am working on my master degree focusing on inclusive education, teaching English to blind people. Beatriz?
And I am Beatriz Erazo. I teach applied linguistics and oral and written communication at Universidad Mayor de San Andrés, one of the biggest universities in the countries. I got a master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages. And my main goal is to become a full-time teacher trainer to help other teachers to do their best in classes. And that's why I paired with Angelita, so we can share with you our experience. So as Angela said and Mushamisi said, this is a part of a series of 3 workshops, which the main objectives is to share some ideas regarding deep learning. The first one is regarding deep learning through team success. And the key in team success is to get some social responsibility. So let's begin.
In our presentation, we are going to cover all these points. So we are going to talk about the definition of a group, what a group is, what a team is. We are going to deal with the assigning roles in a team activity that we have in our groups. We will talk about the social responsibility that each participant has to have in the group in order to achieve the same goal. Besides that, we are going to show you some activities related to chain stories with their suggestions and variations. And finally, to finish with some reflections regarding the presentation that you will enjoy. So let's start with the first part.
So when we talk about teams, we have to keep in mind that if we want teams to succeed, they have to have the roles and responsibilities and to help each other to think of the team as one. That's why we chose these very specific quote that says highly effective teams have clearly articulated roles. So they know what they are going to do inside the team and have responsibilities as well. So they are going to be accountable for what they do and what they do not do. Keeping that in mind, please, keep that in mind all over the presentation.
Now we would like to have your participation. So for this activity, we would like you to follow. We will share a link with you on the chat box in order you to define the word group, right? So we would like you to write 5 words that you think are related to the word group. So we are sharing a link on Mentimeter link on the chat box, so you can click on that. You have 2 options, clicking on the chat box or you can scan the QR code that you can see on the presentation.
Or if you have the application Mentimeter on your cell phones or laptops, you can use directly the code that you have there.
What would you like to do is to write 5 words related to group first, please. So define group. Let's wait for your participation.
So we can give them like 40 more seconds to join us. So we have already some words.
Okay.
Just in case, I am going to show you again. This is the QR code if you want to use it to connect. If you have the application, you can use that code, or you have the link in the chat.
Oh, great. People, collaboration, competence, collaboration, right? Communication, teams, competence, people, teams.
Yes.
Mhm. Really interesting. Common good. Interaction,
Okay, like
co-reliance.
10 more
Yes.
seconds.
All right. So we are defining the word group first, right? So then we will define the other term that is team. Okay, common good. Know exactly a team. All right. That's really interesting.
Yes. And now, please keep these words in mind. And now we are going to share with you the next question. Now define team. Sorry for that. We were
Yeah, it was an
testing it
example.
and I forgot to delete it. Those things happen with um, technology. But don't worry, your words are going to be more noticeable than mine.
Now the word team, the same. 5 words
Yes.
that define this word team, please. We would like to have your participation of the 21 participants that we have in our presentation. Work together. Mhm. Group work, collaboration, engagement, together with a purpose, mates, great. Group work, interdependence, sharing goals, each person's role,
20 more seconds.
all right. Sharing opinions,
Okay, Angela, I think that's the time. Maybe you can
all right.
tell us a little bit more.
Yep. So regarding the definitions that you wrote, the words that you wrote, so I can agree with some of them, but I would like to specify the difference between a group and team. When we talk about group, we are talking about independent individuals, okay, who share something in common. When we say independent individuals, they can be assigned into a group, but they can work by their own. While team is a group of interdependent individuals. When we have interdependent, the term interdependent, it means that each one depends on the other. Who join together, they join together to achieve the same goal. So you were writing that they share I remember some phrases that you wrote on group. So we have something in common, but not necessarily like they work in teams. So when they work in teams, they share that interdependence. And what we suggest is that when you're working in your activities, they have to work in a team. So having that social responsibility that each one is really important in the activity they are working on. So that could be the difference. Go ahead.
Exactly. So that lead us to clarify the difference between a group or a team. Something typical that happens among my students, and I have to admit, when I was a student myself, I used to do that. Professors, teachers assigned uh, a homework assignment. They gave us a project to work on. And typically we did what you see on the first picture, right? We divided the thing into into 4 parts. So I was in charge of one part, another person was in charge of a second part, and then we put everything together. But that's not teamwork. Teamwork is working on all the parts together at the same time, collaborating, helping each other, because we want to achieve more. That's why we chose this picture that says team. It stands for together everyone achieves more. And it's in this case, when you work as a team, you have your responsibility that is a co-responsibility with the other members in the team. It's not that I'm going to have just my part. And if there is a presentation, it's not that 4 people are going to be in the front and I said, no, I know the first part, I don't know the other 3. Everybody knows everything because we have worked together.
And considering that, assigning roles is vital when you are working in teams. Why? So each one knows what they have to do. We can suggest these roles that can depend on the activities that you are working on. So suggesting assigning roles in a team of 4 people, we can have the spokesperson, the one who can report, summarize the activities that the group or the team had worked on. We can have a secretary, the one who takes notes. Here it's really important to mention that the secretary has to write keywords. That person doesn't have to be the one that writes everything while the others are writing and say, stop, please, I'm writing. No, that person has to write some keywords that will help the spokesperson to be guided when he is reporting. Then we have another role that is really important as well, the timekeeper. The timekeeper is the person who controls the time. Sometimes, in our activities, the students don't care about the time and they spend more time on organizing. But if they have a person who pushes them to say, okay, we have to hurry, they start being controlled. And the timekeeper's role is really important in that situation. Then we can have a monitor. The monitor is the one who controls that everyone is working in a collaborative way. Even they can control that they are not speaking Spanish, right? So if we are talking about breakout rooms, they can control that. So in assigning roles makes people and makes the team work together because everyone has a responsibility in the group. Besides that, these roles can depend on the teacher as well. In my case, I suggest working on spokespeople, secretaries, timekeepers, monitors, but using your imagination, you can use different names as well, such as a secretary can be a writer, a scribe, timekeeper, you can name them like time controller, monitor can be a facilitator. That's the way you can play with the terms. But the idea is that each one in the team has to have an assigned role to work. Now, maybe you say, what happened if I have 3 members in my group? What happened if I have 5? That's the creativity of the teachers. So you can, for example, consider the most relevant roles in the team, and you can say, okay, the spokesperson we need in this activity, the secretary, the timekeeper, so you can work with them if you have a team of 3 people. If you have a team of 5 students, you can assign, for example, a reflector, a person who reflects the activity if all the procedures were doing in a good way, or so they were working in a good way. So assigning roles is really vital.
And since all they have their own responsibilities, the learning experience is enhanced. Now, here you can see in black what we think when we talk about a group. I learn, you learn, they learn, we learn. But when we talk about social responsibility, when we say that I am going to help you achieve the common goal because you are going to help me at the same time to achieve the common goal, then the words change. It's not I learn, it's I learn with you. It's not you learned with me. We learn together, and there is not a day. So when we explain to our students clearly their roles, and that they have to work together and they have to push each other together, they have to encourage each member in the team, we are telling them, you are going to succeed together or you are going to fail together. You are going to support every single member in the team, or you're not going to support anybody in the team. And this is advantageous because if in the group, in the team, we have a student that is a little bit weaker than the others, then the stronger students are going to help that student to get better. This student is not going to feel weak any longer. He or she will be supported. She will feel strong. So let's keep in mind that this is not just separated anymore. It's you and I, both of us, not only me, not only you, it's all of us together. That's social responsibility. Now, to have a clearer idea on how you can make your students work in teams with roles, let's do some hands-on. We would suggest that maybe you could work with chain stories. Now, we are giving you stories as the context of what you can do, but we are not saying that this idea of having teams and roles and applying social responsibility that also will be helpful in their lives outside the classroom is only applied to writing activities. It applies to everything that you can do in your classes. So let's begin with a chain story.
So, in order to understand what a chain story is, in this presentation, we are working on the written form. So, what it means: one student writes the first sentence, the second student, having read the first sentence, he has to continue on the second sentence. Then the third student, the fourth student follow the same procedure. So, in that way, they are working on the chain story, writing the sentences together. That's what we refer when we talk about chain story. And the way we work on it is in the following way. All right. We would like to suggest this activity in an online way. How can we work on a chain story if we are on an online activity? First, the teacher is the one who assigns a topic, right, regarding the things, the objectives that you have in classes. Then, once the students are sent to the breakout rooms, they have to decide their roles: monitor, a spokesperson, timekeeper, or the secretary. We have the four roles that we mentioned before, right? Once they are there, all of them have to work together. First, the monitor has to assign some colors in the team. So if we are working in a team of 4 people, so each one has to choose a different color. Example: Beatriz is going to write with red color, Maria is going to write with blue color, Pedro with orange color, and maybe Angela will write with purple color. So they have to write with different colors in order to follow the story. Then this is the monitor's role. He has to control that everyone is working properly in that organized way. Then we have timing. We have the timekeeper, the one who has to control 1 minute. So each participant, each individual has 1 minute to write. So first of all, I can start with Beatriz. Beatriz start writing. Then the other person, after 1 minute, continues the other person. So the timekeeper has to be controlling the time in order not to exceed the minute that they have to write. Finally, we have the edition. And in this part, the secretary is the one who starts checking the mistakes that they have made. But the secretary doesn't work alone. The secretary works with the whole group in order to check the mistakes they could have made, such as capitalization, maybe tenses, maybe spelling mistakes. So all of them work on the corrections. Finally, we have the spokesperson. The spokesperson in this activity is the one who talks about the process, if everything was working well, and maybe if there were some difficulties while they were working in the activity. This is the way we work on an online activity in the chain story. And to sum up here, we have the roles. And we can say that the roles depend on the activities that you want to work on, the skill. In the part of the writing, we can follow this. For example, the monitor has to be sure that everybody is working in an orderly manner. The timekeeper is the one who has been control the time, is the one who has to control the time. And secretary was the one who was working on the edition, and the spokesperson reports the process. As I mentioned before, if there were some difficulties while they were working together. But A speaking activity, that's why we said that these responsibilities depend on the activities, on the skills. Could be that the spokesperson, if they have to discuss something, has to report everything. And giving you the example of the writing, we can mention that in the spokesperson reports the process, while on a speaking on an oral activity, the spokesperson can report, summarize the activities that they have been working on. And maybe to clarify this part, all of them have to work together because they have to assume their responsibility in their teams.
An example.
Yes, I would like to share this example with you, the way I work with my students. And I can show you this and I can explain this part to you related to the steps. You know that sometimes when we work in our classes, some students do not understand some things that we have explained before. For that reason, I wrote all the steps for them to follow. And the first step, as I said before, is the topic that they have to write about. In this case, the teacher assigned the topic, and if you can see, there is a picture there. Most of the time, we have to try to call our students' attention with some pictures that might be different, right? And so, talking about that part in the steps that we can see now, okay, no problem.
Continue.
All right, we have
Continue,
some
continue.
steps. So as we said before, the first thing that I have to do is to decide the roles. As I repeat again, monitor, secretary, spokesperson, and timekeeper. After that, they have to work on the monitor has to be sure that everyone is writing with different colors, right? And once you see the picture, you can see that there are colors like writer one, writer two, writer three, writer four. They have been assigned different colors for writing. Then students have to look at the picture and they have to organize their ideas in order to start writing. So once they have their ideas, it's more simple for them, and the timekeeper has to control that everyone is working with following the story that we have there related to the alien that you have seen before, right? And after that, once they finish once they have maybe written everything twice, it depends how many times you want them to write. It can be once, twice, three times, depending on the time and the objectives you have with the activity. So in my activity, I told my students to write twice, and so that's why you have the steps there. Finally, we have the edition part. Yeah, yeah.
I was going to say that my apologies, but that is what Angela was doing. I don't know what happened, but here we are again. This is the picture she mentioned. This is the color she mentioned, and how she gave the students the opportunity to write. Maybe they can see directly the example.
All right, yeah. So now we have here the example. You can see that all the students were using different colors and they were writing the times we said, right? Can be once, twice, or three times. This is the way they work. And then we can see the edition, right, by the secretary. The edition has to be checked with a different color in order not to confuse that. So they have to correct themselves because you know that when the process of writing, we have like the pre-writing, drafting, the proofreading and revising and then publishing. So in the part of writing, they have to write. They have to keep on writing without caring mistakes or anything related to tenses or something like that. So in the part of the edition is where they work together and the secretary writes all the mistakes that they make and they correct themselves. Okay, now another variation, all right, what happened now when we return to our classes? We won't work on a Google Doc, we will work on a piece of paper. And this activity can be done in a classroom as well in this way. I have a piece of paper. Okay, so now I work on a piece of paper. If you can see that, that's the piece of paper. Now, the same, the teacher is the one who assigns the topic, the thing that I have to write. In this case, could be the alien that you have seen there. The monitor is the one that, before doing that, so of course they have to decide the roles again, to the four roles that I mentioned before. After that, the monitor has to be sure that all the students have chosen different colors. Could be red, black, blue, depends on them, right? But everyone has to write with different colors. After that, the timekeeper has to control a minute. So let's start, I can give you the example. So I'm the first student, I start writing with blue. After the minute that the timekeeper is controlling, I hand my piece of paper to the other student. That student has to read first what was previously reading, and then he has to continue with the color he has chosen. And the procedure continues in that way. What is the challenging part here? That on a piece of paper, they are not together, they are not close to each other. So the other students have to spend time on reading and writing. In the minute, they have to do two things. While on the Google Doc, all of them are looking at the screen. So they are observing what the other person is writing and they are organizing their ideas in order to write. While here on the piece of paper, they need to do that really fast in a spontaneous way. So that can be the challenging part of this session. And finally, when they finish, the secretary has to choose another color, and being helped by all the team, they have to correct their mistakes as well. This is the way that you can work in an activity, in a face-to-face activity once we return to our classes.
You may consider other variations as well. In the previous case, the teacher was the one who chose the topic, what the students were going to write. But if you want to make it more challenging, if you want to ask your students to be more creative, you can use Story Dice. Let me share with you the website. It's called Story Dice. And what students have to do is just they roll it again. They can do it in their laptops or in their smartphones, and they are going to get 5 different pictures. Also, this page allows you to have the variation of having 9 different pictures. The idea is that you are not going to give the topic, but students are going to decide what to do with all these pictures and create something. The purpose is that they have to use all the pictures that they get. They have to include them in the writing in any order they want. And if they don't know the vocabulary of something, for example, they don't know that the picture here is called pliers, they can use something that is close to that, without forgetting that they cannot omit any of the pictures. It doesn't matter if they are 5 or if they are just 9.
Now, how can we work on a writing activity regarding the pictures that you have seen with the Story Dice? We can work on two ways, in classroom activity and in online activity. Working in an online activity could be kind of different from the chain story that I explained before. In this part, the rules have to be kept. So we have to keep in mind that any activity that we are working on, we have to assign roles to our students in order to have that, I can repeat a word, and I think that's really important, the social responsibility that each one depends on the other in order to succeed together. So using the pictures, they have to choose, well, in this case could be either 5 or 9 pictures that you have. They have to choose the topic. So if we go back to the images before, could you go back, please? All right, so there. So they have flyers, they have goals. Maybe they can say, okay, let's talk about Halloween because we have a ghost there. So deciding the topic, they can start writing. So we go to the next one, please. There, the same roles assigned. The monitor has to be sure that all of them are writing with different colors. But what's the difference in this kind of activity? If it were an online activity, all of them in a Google Doc given by the teacher have to write at the same time. How long they have to write? The timekeeper has to control 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes. So all of them start writing at the same time based on the pictures that they are observing and based on the topic they have decided to choose. Once they finish, of course, you can say, but maybe the story doesn't make much more sense. So there, the secretary is the one who has to work together with them in order to link the activities, connectors, maybe transitions, to have the whole story together. And finally, the spokesperson has to do the same, the process, that if there were difficulties and so on. If it were a piece of paper, they have to give, if it were on a classroom activity, they have pieces of paper right? All of them have different pieces of paper, the same, they look at the images or the pictures, and they start writing with the different colors assigned, controlled by the monitor, and then they gather together, okay, being controlled by the timekeeper who will give them just 2 minutes. They have to control, and then now they have to go to the part of the edition, being guided by the secretary. And they have to gather all the pieces of paper. Maybe they can have a kind of poster, then you will see that. And they have to write some connectors, transitions in order to have the whole story together.
Yes, at the end, what's that is something that they can do here. You can see a picture that was prepared by some of my students. When we were having in-classroom activities, they created a poster with everything that they had done. If you are teaching online, you can ask the students to share the Google Doc that they were working on a Google Drive, or you can use the application Padlet, so everyone can type, upload. You can also ask them to include the pictures that they were using, or create a new one with all the pictures that they want, so you can encourage them to be creative. How they publish the work also can be discussed with the team. The team can choose what they prefer. And together they are going to take the responsibility to make it happen. You can also use this activity of working together when you assign, for example, your students to do some reading before classes. So in this class that I had, I asked my students to read some articles about communication because that was the topic of our lesson. So when they came back in groups, they had to negotiate the meaning. They had to present, okay, this is what I read in my piece of reading or in my article. The other student also shared his or her knowledge of what he had done as the homework assignment before. And then they put everything together. And instead of asking them to just prepare a summary, I told them, okay, this time we are going to do something different. You are going to create an infographic. And all together, after they discussed on the ideas, what they wanted to include in their infographics, I asked them to use Canva. That is a free tool that they can use. And using their imagination and their creativity, they created infographics. These infographics then were displayed on a Padlet, and everybody could read all the infographics, could give comments of them, give them likes. The idea is that students had different texts to read about the same topic, communication, and they prepared different infographics. So if you see here in the activity, there was reading, there was writing, there was speaking, there was listening to each other. The most important thing, they were working collaboratively to have one common product, which was an infographic. Asking them to create mind maps, either if you are working online or in the classroom, is also very helpful. The idea is that each student is going to assume his or her role and produce one final product together as a team. You can also work with videos. In this case, we suggest that maybe you can ask your student to prepare a short speech, just speak for 1 minute about something, or instead of having a presentation in front of the class, they can create a video using a PowerPoint or any other kind of speaking activities. I have had great success using Flipgrid, which is a collaborative platform in which students can upload their videos. They can be commented. I have an example for you, and I would like to explain it a little bit before. So these students were supposed to create a video introducing themselves, right? I got the permission of Vania to share her video, and students got together. They brainstormed ideas on what they were supposed to create in their videos if they were introducing themselves. Then they prepared a draft of their video. After creating an outline and recording it, they created a draft. And students and myself, we gave them some feedback on how they could improve. If they had difficulties, they relied on the team members to improve. Either this could be creativity, it could be how to use an application, how to do something with the video, introduce some pictures maybe, but they work together as a team. But instead of creating just one product, they created individual products. So they worked together in the process. And there was this person telling them, the deadline is 9 p.m. today, so don't forget, we have to do this, we have to do that. Let's get together in a Zoom, because all of this was done online this past semester. But they created something like this. So let me share a little bit of this. I hope you can listen to her. It's a little bit slow, just the thing with the technology. 5 more seconds, and if it doesn't work, my apologies for that.
Hello everyone, let me introduce myself please. My name is Vani Quejada. I'm 22 years old and I live in La Paz, Bolivia. I am 100% Colita. Two things that I like is cooking and singing. I don't know if I do them well, but I love them. One of my big...
Okay, thank you so much. So as you could see here, this is an individual product, but all the process was done with a team. So it's not that if they teams, they are going to create just one product. They can create individual products. Another thing that I like from Flipgrid is that, you know, the other participants could make comments on it. Either they can type their comments or they can record another video to respond to that and kind of have a video conversation. I like Flipgrid that much for that purpose. In a different project, instead of using Flipgrid, I asked my student to use Chatterpix. Chatterpix is an application that you can have on your cell phones, and it's usually meant for little kids. And what they have to do is they choose a picture, a photograph that they take to Chatterpix. It's very easy to use. And then they have to draw a line on the part that they want they want a mouth to appear, and then they have to record their voices. The advantage of this is that many students do not like to see their faces in the videos, and it's not like the case of the students. I don't like to see my face on videos either. So Chatterpix helps. For this project, students were working in groups of 5, and they had their different roles. They had, this was a basic course, level 1, A1, and they were learning about clothes and colors, and they had to tell what they were wearing. So using Chatterpix, they chose a picture and they recorded their voices.
I am Martina. I am from Argentina. I am a singer and actress. Today I am wearing a black jacket, a white shirt, and black pants. I am also wearing a leather handbag and earrings.
So what students did was to find pictures, to help each other create the videos, listen to them if they were having a good pronunciation, maybe they forgot to mention something, and then they uploaded all their videos on a Padlet. I also asked them, okay, this is your video, but also type what you said. So students could see what they were writing and maybe suggest, I know, you know, forgot to say, I am wearing a sweater, or it sounded, instead of I'm, it sounded just am, or things like that. So listening to each other, reading about what they did, and collaborating produce this nice result in the project. Again, they worked together, but they produced individual products.
Well, now we have shared many ideas with you related to videos. We had shared 10 stories, and we would like you to reflect on the learning that you had today through these questions. So we would like to have your participation now, answering these 2 questions that we have there, such as, what are you getting from this session? What do you plan to do with this knowledge? We would like you to share your ideas on the chat box, please, in order to read them, and we can have them as the reflection you have from our presentation, please. So wait
Now,
for you
this
to
is an
write.
activity that we also ask our students to do at the end of their sessions. We ask them to think what they have learned and what they are going to do with that knowledge. So we are, at this moment, we are asking you to put on your student's hat and please respond to these 2 questions in the chat box. Angelita, you tell me.
Yeah. Maybe they are writing. We have to wait for them.
Yes.
"20 minutes left."
Thank you, Musha.
Even those who aren't directly in the session sharing your screen, you can also put messages in the chat you're welcome to.
Don't be shy. So in those moments when I am waiting for my students to participate, I always tell them, don't fight to participate, please. Don't do that.
All right. So we have the first one. Musha, could you help us, please?
I just learned Flipgrid this year. I love the idea of using it with interactive video chats between S and small
Students.
s. Oh, okay.
Students.
Responding and starting others in. Okay. Thank you
Yeah,
very much, Laura Holland.
Analyze about objectives and inputs. That's what Nancy said.
Thank you.
So maybe they are going to keep on typing their answers to our
Now they're
questions.
coming in. Participating in groups helps to develop creativity and collaborative work. Very true. I also really
Yes, I
appreciate
like that comment. I like that comment. I'm sorry, Musha. I like that comment very much because we have to remember that nowadays the students have to develop at least what we call the 4 C's skills for the 21st century. So if they are going to be part of the workforce, they have to have creativity. They have to know how to collaborate. They have to be able to communicate, and they have to have critical thinking. So the critical thinking is to find solutions for the problems. When you ask your students to work in teams and you assign them roles, they are precisely learning those things. They're collaborating, they are learning to speak, to say their word, to give an opinion, to listen to other people that may not have the same opinion, and they have to create something together. And if there is a problem, then they are going to find a solution. The critical thinking comes when you ask them to do exactly what we are asking you to do, reflect on their learning. Thank you so much, Musha.
Then we have Cecilia Mejia, and I would like to maybe focus on something like participating in groups helps to develop creativity and collaborative work. We can, as we mentioned before, we have to make that difference between group and team. So it's better to keep the term team because they work together. While in groups, they are together but independent. So they work as they want. So as
They
Beatriz
don't work
mentioned,
together.
yes, they work. I mean, they are in the same place, but they are like, okay, you work on this, you work on that, you work on that. So everyone is working by their own. But in a team, everybody knows what each one is doing. So there is not the way to say, oh, sorry, today, I mean, okay, Pedro didn't come, so I don't know anything. Everybody knows the topic. So this is the part of working together in a team. That's something we have to keep in mind. Working in team, assigning roles can help us in our classes. Then Angela,
But
go
there is,
ahead.
Angela, there is anecdote that this joke that we make among teachers and professors at the university. Sometimes when you create a group project and there are 5 people, and somebody says, "I'm going to do part 1 and the other part 2, part 3," and member number 5 usually says, "Oh, I'm going to bring the salteñas and the Coca-Colas." So
Yeah.
He's not going to work, or I am going to get the photocopies, or I'm going to create a PowerPoint. But that is not working collaborative. That's not being a team. And that's why I like, thank you, Angela, that she emphasized there's a difference between team and group. Thank you.
And mentioning that, Angela said these are very useful tools that we can use not only in class but for other projects too. Thank you for such great ideas. Definitely. So we were suggesting those activities not only on online activities, right? So I mean on the online classes, but also in classroom. I mean face-to-face classes, because we are sure that next year we will return to our classrooms. So we have to reinvent, if we want, the activities, right? So we know that when we started the pandemic, so it was really confusing and really shocking for us to say, okay, now what about this activity? I had this on piece of paper. How I can change this activity to an online one? And we suggested those things about chain stories. And besides that, I think that both of us show you how you can use with your students, because we show you examples that's possible to work on that. And assigning roles, either on videos, as Beatriz said, that we have the product, but all of them were involved with that, like correcting themselves, writing, checking. So this is the way we should work with our students. Thank you.
Let's clarify that at least in Bolivia, we are still teaching online in most of the places. Just they are trying to, in places like the rural areas, the students are going back to the classroom. Some subjects in certain universities have gone back to the classroom, but majority of us we are still teaching online. But we have to be prepared that next year we are going to go back to the classroom, but we will need to use technology. And these activities, you can ask your students to use their technology. Use your smartphone and record your video on Flipgrid while you are in the class working with your classmates. It doesn't have to be necessarily from home, directly from the laptop or something like that. Are there any other comments?
Cecilia Mushak, please, can you help us? Thank you.
I see one saying for many students, group activities are more motivating. But other than that, I don't see any more comments.
Yeah, that was Cecilia, the last one, right? Yes, and Maria Eugenia.
Maria, it's excellent.
Yes, so applauses for you, to all of you. I don't know if there are questions or any other thing, maybe that something that you would like us to clarify before we finish. We're going to finish a little bit earlier. Maybe you can unmute yourselves if you would like to ask your question.
Yes. Hi, everybody. This was so really great. I just love getting new ideas and hearing fresh perspectives, even about things I've been doing. You know, I've been teaching so long that dinosaurs roamed the earth when I started. But I just get such fresh perspectives from you. But one thing that I was thinking about during the chain story process is that I don't know if any of you know the old, now defunct method of conversation circles that came from from Charles Curran and Jenny Bell Reardon, the counseling learning, community language learning method back when methods were still being used, which I pretty much threw almost all of that in the garbage, except for the conversation circles, which I still use to this day in face-to-face classes when we have them. And it occurred to me that that same procedure you are suggesting could work really well with the conversation circles. And so just a small variation of something else to try would be the having the students record their own conversations, like a 2-minute conversation that somebody records on their phone. and where they ask and answer each other questions, and then they take that out, and then they have to turn that into, they transcribe it, and then they correct it, and then they could turn it into a story. So it seems like you could take that whole procedure and add it to them making the text from their own experiences and their own lives, and then that becomes the new text that they work with. So I love adapting that to this old technique.
Thank you so much. That's brilliant. It's something that I would like to try right away.
Me too. I'm going to try it.
I can tell you that I tried that because when we were in classes, we used to work on our WhatsApp. So students were like recording their voices, looking at the picture, and then they continue. Like, okay, imagining the story. And finally, we had a story that was really maybe amazing because they didn't know what they were saying. So then the last one maybe tried to finish the story with a horror end or maybe a sad end. So it was really interesting. So we can adapt our activities, not only on the reading way, but in an oral way as well. So we are teachers, we are really creative, and this is the way that we have to work. And, even when we are sleeping, I don't know if it happened to you, we are dreaming, they say, okay, tomorrow I will work on that. Yes, and you wake up and say, oh, yes, I have to do this. Okay, I dream of this. So you start working on this. This is the way we work. Even sleeping, we are continuing teachers, right?
Shower is my inspiration. All the good ideas or bad ideas, or sometimes this is the way I want to torture my students today, they happen in the shower. So for me, shower is the place where I get my ideas.
All right, that's really awesome. Thank you, Laura. Yeah.
Maria has something in the chat in terms of towards Beatriz. I had a chance of being on a workshop you gave 2 years ago in La Paz. This collaborative way of working will help us adapt our classes so that everyone can benefit and improve.
Yes, absolutely true. Something that I find difficult is to create activities in which my students really commit to each other to collaborate and help. Sometimes students understand that collaborate means to get a final product, just one thing that they are going to, give to the teacher, and they are going to get a score. The idea here is that we want them to make them accountable of their own learning and accountable of the learning of their classmates. So collaboration becomes also an action, a way of thinking differently. It's not just producing something, but it's also making everybody sure that they are really learning and, getting more vocabulary, doing better in speaking, learning more grammar, whatever they are interested in. I have a very strong personality, and sometimes students do not like to ask me questions, but if they are working in teams, instead of asking the question for my classmate, they are going to motivate this student that thinks that I am going to have a sandwich of a student for lunch, which never happens, believe me, but I think they think so. So instead of like, okay, I'm going to ask the question for you. Now, if you are social responsible for that student, for that classmate, I am going to, come on, you can do it. Ask the question. Believe me, she has the face of a witch, but she's not a witch. So don't worry. So yeah, thank you for that comment.
And I can mention besides that sometimes in our classes we have one student that likes speaking, right? They raise their hands, and the others are quiet because they are shy. So when we assign roles, what we do that each one, they can choose at random. You are the spokesperson, and maybe in another activity they can switch or swap those roles. So the other person has the responsibility to be the spokesperson, and in that way they are working in an active way. So it's not the same one that always speaks, not the same one that always writes. Everybody can work on assigning roles, but changing them, right? So they swap the roles.
They're not going to have the same role all the time.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because
so I think we have like one more minute.
Yep. So Musha can help us on that. Is that okay? Build confidence.
There's someone who says, Celsia says, build confidence.
That's totally true. And that reminds me of one of my most touching experiences as a teacher. There was this girl that was very shy, and whenever she had to be the spokesperson, their classmates like suffer a lot, and I was like this horrible teacher in front of her, like I'm going to wait for her to speak, and sometimes the other students said I can do it for her, and I was like, no, it is her turn and she has to do it. And I felt bad because I was forcing her. At the end of the semester, the last day of classes, she came to me and said, Beatriz, I want to talk to you. And I was going to cry because I thought she was going to complain. I cried anyways because she said, thank you, because you didn't give up on me. And now I feel confident that I can speak. So yeah, giving roles and having the students get their responsibilities and assuming them and being accountable for what they have to do help at least this girl a lot. And I cry easily, by the way. I cry for everything, so don't get it's not weird that I cry. So yeah, thank you so much.